From March 5th to March 11, 2021, the Brazil-Canada Chamber of Commerce will be hosting the 15th edition of the Brazil-Canada PDAC, taking place during the 2021 PDAC Virtual Convention, which includes a series of events focused in the Brazilian mineral exploration mining industries. I'm Carolina Albernaz, CEO of the Brazil-Canada Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here today with Ana Cabral-Gardner, Chief Strategy Officer and Co-Chair of Sigma Lithium Resources, to talk about the company, their world-class industrial-scale hard rock lithium project, green mining, and the future, and what the future holds for Sigma. So first, Ana, welcome, and thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you, Carolina. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about yourself and about Sigma Lithium Resources?
Absolutely. Well, I'm the co-chairman of Sigma, and I'm also the chief strategy officer of the company. Sigma is set to become one of the largest and most sustainable producers of lithium in the Americas when we initiate production in the first half of 22. We are going to be delivering possibly the lowest carbon spodumene concentrate in the world. And phase one is slated to produce 220,000 tons of this low-cost hard rock spodumene concentrate per year. Another important feature is that because of the levels of purity of the spodumene concentrate, we are able to essentially facilitate or enable the downstream production of lithium hydroxide, which we are doing in a strategic alliance with Mitsui. At the moment, the stage of the project, we are in pre-construction. So we're working on the foundations for the plant, and we're working on the geotechnical detail engineering work for the mine. And we are slated to continue on towards this construction for the next 12 months. And hence our expected date for production being in the first half of next year.
Great. So you mentioned then the production operation starting next year. What should we expect from Sigma after this first phase?
Well, we actually have a larger area, which is called Grota do Cirilo. So when we think about the project is much larger than just that one deposit. What we're doing is developing the entire Grota do Cirilo project, meaning there's a centralized plant which has various production lines, and there are in that area 5 deposits. So after the first phase, we're going to move towards the second deposit, which ultimately is just a line within that plant, which will be built for phase one. So scaling up becomes relatively easy, given that we are quite advanced, in fact, on developing the second deposit, and we are going into feasibility now, basically in the first half of the year. We're probably announcing preliminary results for the pre-feasibility around May. We've already announced the metallurgy results for that second deposit. So what to expect, we're just going to continue to scale up and get bigger and bigger into phase 2, phase 3, and so on and so forth.
Amazing. So ESG is nothing new to the mining sector and is really embedded into Sigma's DNA. Why is sustainability so important for your production line?
Well, we want to make a difference. We want to make a difference in the mining sector, and we want to make a difference in the planet. I mean, that's how we started. My original background, I was a co-founding partner of a boutique private equity firm called A10, which was focused on, back then, what we called responsible investing, because that was the name of ESG back when. And with that mandate, we were able to set the foundations for Sigma's ESG at very deep levels. In other words, there's work that we've been doing in environmental and social sustainability today, which is ultimately the byproduct, the result of a 6-year journey. So the plan, the goal is to make Sigma one of the most sustainable, low carbon and low cost lithium producers in the world. So we're very proud of our sustainability module, essentially, because it is ingrained. In other words, it's ingrained in the overall way through which we manage the company. We have an ESG centric strategy where everything we do, every single action, technical, production, is determined by how do they fit within our core ESG goals, which are measured using the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So across the board, E, S, and G, we manage that so that the strategy of the company is a derivative of the ESG goals and not the other way around.
Wow, so you're doing sustainable finance even before sustainable finance was trendy.
Right, because back then it was about the purpose, right? What was the purpose? To run this is as a responsible investment. So back then we started on this journey in 2015 when A10 made the investment in Sigma and became co-controlling shareholder with the founders group. So ultimately, what happened back then was we had to apply the PRI, which were the principles for responsible investing, as a guidepost. The entire world, I think, evolved positively to create a more structured framework. But given that we've always had the PRI as the center of everything we do, it became a lot simpler for us to simply, readequate what we've been doing under PRI into what's now called ESG. And some of these measures don't happen overnight. I mean, we have, for example, we call environmental reserves and an environmental compensation program, which is extremely, extremely far-reached. We made a decision on preserving a river creek, in an entire ecosystem 5 years ago. So now we're essentially looking at all that's been done. We've had 2 women in the board forever, since day one. So essentially here, when we look at what we've done, it's just who we are. It's ingrained in the purpose, in the core purpose, in the core mission of the company.
Wow. No, this is really incredible. So Goldman Sachs released the commodity outlook in the end of 2020, talking about a new super cycle, similar to what we saw in the beginning of 2000s. Are you expecting an increase on demand, and how are you planning? I mean, you mentioned a little bit about the phases, but how is Sigma really planning on scale up as a result of this demand?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's hard to disagree that a lot of the trends underpinning this super cycle in battery materials this decade are here to stay, and they run much deeper than just the electric vehicle. This is about, we believe, mankind trying to have a more sustainable or a more permanent relationship with the planet, because we realized what could happen when the planet turns on us, right? So given that across the board, the ultimate stakeholder, which is, the population of the planet, the consumer, however you want to call it, is not willing to tolerate certain practices anymore. When you think about the quintessential item of durable consumption, which is the vehicle, consumers are doing their part, and they're changing the way they related to that vehicle to make that vehicle sustainable. So hence electric vehicles, right? But that happens across the board. So it isn't just about electric vehicles, it's much broader than this. But demand will increase. What are we doing in practice? We front loaded the second phase. We plan to produce material from the second phase in 2024 or late 23. We're now front loading it to produce first half of 23. And then same thing with phase 3. Phase 2 doubles the size of the company, which will be announced in the feasibility, but the expectation is that it will take us to 440,000 tons of this lithium product. And then phase 3 increases it in another 220,000 tons. So each one of the phases is of the same size. Wow. It's a production line on this plant that we're building, that we're in pre-construction, that we're pre-constructing at the moment. And we are gonna have the ability to scale up with the demand. So as demand increases throughout the decade, we are going to be deliver each one of the phases accordingly, which is a very, let's say, risk conscious manner of developing a project of this scale. As you know, we deliver the product as demand is there, and we validate that thesis by actually pre-selling the material we are going to be delivering into these 5-year take or pay agreements that we have with Mitsui. So it's phased in precisely to, you know, increase and scale up with the demand.
So you mentioned Mitsui, like you signed a joint venture with them back in 2019, like a big trading company. What does it entail for Sigma, that partnership with Mitsui?
We have a fantastic relationship with Mitsui. It's evolved. Initially, it was an offtake agreement. It evolved into a strategic alliance, basically because of the high quality material that Sigma has demonstrated it can produce in its pilot plant facility in the Jequitinhonha Valley in Minas Gerais in scale. So we produced material in bulk pilot size. Mitsui distributed this material to their customers worldwide, and thanks to this very high quality of the material, we were certified as a supplier to essentially all the key stakeholders in the large electric vehicle supply chains across the world, and we are able to deliver this high purity premiumized product with Mitsui. So with that knowledge, we evolved into a strategic alliance. So this special relationship, you know, essentially strengthen our collaboration, and Mitsui is entering this agreement to purchase our material for up to 11 years on this basis. So we're intrinsically linked to each other in the lithium value chain globally now. And again, the scaling up of production is planned concomitantly, so that we also are able to scale up our ability to deliver the premiumized tier one lithium hydroxide product through this strategic alliance with Mitsui.
Wow, this is really amazing. And last question for us to finish today: can the future of mining be anything but green?
Well, absolutely not, right? It goes back to the point I made. There's been a fundamental change in the perception of our relationship with the planet by the consumers and the population and everyone. Mining is critical, indispensable. We can't live without mining. Everything we do is made of mined minerals. I think what's happening is an evolution of the mining industry into a 21st century industry. In other words, we are abandoning this industry, has to abandon 19th century, 20th century practices to own its place, which is needed and necessary into these value chains of the 21st century, which on the other hand, from one perspective, these are fast growing value chains. So the growth is ensured because there's the shift in demand. But on the other hand, these are very demanding value chains. They look at our businesses on an all encompassing manner, from governance to social to environmental. It isn't just environmental, it's broader than that. And we believe is a very, very positive evolution for the industry, because we will, once we once the mining industry is able to demonstrate and convince stakeholders of its willingness to become a 21st century industry, I mean, we will basically secure our place into the future as an industry. We have a seat at the table of the future. Everything depends on mining.
Yeah, no, this is nice words. Thank you so much for your time and support. You are inspiration, I have to say. It's always so
Thank
great to
you.
talk to you. Sigma Lithium Resources is one of our silver sponsors at the 15th edition of the Brazil Canada PDAC series of events. Anna, thank you very much for being here today. And for you that's at home, don't miss it. For more information registration, please go to www.braskenchamber.org/PDAC 2021. And we look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you, Carolina. Thank you for the invitation.